Simply Tammy.
It's a blessing that I'm here, I'm alive. No, I never ever have to cry, cause it's something I know will always work for me on my side. Not a thing I even have to fight, All things work together for my good. Life speaks if you listen, it might be sound. Watch the love come alive. Sharing the truth that inspires, Sharing the truth that inspires, Sharing the truth that inspires. All things work together for my good. Life speaks if you listen, it might be sound. Watch the joy come alive, watch the joy. Sharing the truth that inspires.
Inspired to love, inspired to grow, inspired to heal, inspired to live. Simply Tammy.
Good evening, and welcome back. Oh my goodness, it has been 2 months, and it seems like it has been too long since we have been together for Women Who Win. And jumping back on tonight on not our usual night. We had shifted to Thursdays for most of our broadcasts, but to accommodate my guest tonight, we are back on Wednesday. So those of you who have been with me since the beginning, you know that we've alternated some Wednesdays and some Thursdays. So as you guys are jumping on, please do what it says at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and jump in the comments, say hello to us, let us know where you're connecting from. If you're here to support my wonderful guest tonight, please say hello. We don't know who you are and who's watching with us or who's connected with us unless you jump in the comments. And we definitely want to acknowledge your presence while you are saying hello in the comments. After you do that, go ahead and click on share so that you can let others know that you are watching and they can join us and join in on the conversation. And my last request, which is my request that I make all the time, please subscribe to the Simply Tammy YouTube channel. Those of you that are watching us on YouTube, thank you for connecting with me on that medium. But even if you are not watching on YouTube, if you do use YouTube, and most of us do, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I have a goal that I'm trying to reach this week, so I'd appreciate you subscribing. And guess what? Because this is not our usual night, we have 2 interviews this week. So I'm very excited about the amazing woman that I'm bringing to your front tonight. And I will be back on tomorrow night. So I'll share a little bit more about that towards the end. I see some of you guys are already jumping in the comments, and I cannot wait to say hello to you once I bring my guest on. So I am not going to delay. My amazing guest tonight is none other than Kimberly Joy Morgan. So I'm going to read her bio, and after I read her bio, I'm going to bring her up on the screen. Kimberly Joy Morgan is a child of God, a wife, mother, sister, and friend who happens to be a published author, internationally certified health coach specializing in gut health and microbiome reconstruction, a professional union actress, and a certified personal trainer. Kimberly graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill with highest honors in 1999. She is the founder and CEO of Do All Things with Joy, LLC. Kimberly humbly uses her life to inspire people to see the benefit of healthy living so they have the energy to pursue their goals and approach life with passion and purpose. Down to earth, inspirational, authentic, and tell it like it is would be words to describe her personality and approach to coaching. She loves to teach and deconstruct complicated topics in health, wellness, and life so everyone can understand, no matter the background or level of education. Presently, you can find her speaking at events, leading online courses to hundreds, helping clients one-on-one, recording exercise videos, and designing choreography for fitness companies. Kimberly's life centers around holistic living and fitness. She believes everyone should understand where health and wellness meet passion and purpose. Hello, 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 and good
Hey,
evening, Kimberly.
thank you
How
for
are
having me.
you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Thank you
It's
for
an honor.
saying yes. So very excited to have you with me. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in the comments and see who we have. Have my niece, Delinda Brown, saying hello to us.
Hey,
My sis down in Atlanta, Cheryl, saying hello to us. My other niece, so my fam is representing.
hey.
Shintara, well, both of our sisters, Miss Stephanie, Glass and Game is watching. Hey, Stephanie. And there's a few more people watching. You guys can go ahead and jump in the comments. One of the things I like to do if I have a guest that I have met or, you know, known personally or had interaction with, kind of give background. And my earliest remembrance of meeting you was when you were teaching fitness here in Greenville at the Imagine Center. And then I know after that, we probably have been at a few events together. I know that I attended an oil party at your home with Stephanie. So
Yeah.
just over the years, just kind of been in your presence. You mentored at one of In Life's mentoring mixes for me. So you have always been an amazing person, bringing so much light and joy wherever
Aw,
you tread. So I'm so glad that you said yes to join us tonight.
thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. And it was interesting. I just saw in our timeline that that mentoring program was, I guess, only a day or so ago, like 3 years or 3 years ago. Yeah,
Yes,
right before I
yes.
left. So, yeah. So it's
Absolutely,
good.
absolutely. We have some more people saying hello on YouTube. We have Miko King.
Hey,
Hey,
Mika.
Miko and Panora Wallace and Florence. So we have a good group watching with us tonight. So you guys stay in the comments. I'm sure she's going to drop some nuggets that you're going to want to repeat. So I'm going to kick it off with, as I was reading your bio and all of these amazing things that you have done or are currently doing.
Mm-hmm.
How closely does your life reflect little Kimberly's dream?
Little Kimberly's dream, I was kind of, I actually think it reflects it pretty well because in some instances, I was all over the place. I wanted to be in the army. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be on a newscaster. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be, I mean, like literally, that's kind of how I wanted to be a journalist as far as writing was concerned. Um, I never really had, when people said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I never really had an answer for them. There were so many things that I loved. Like I was always into fitness. I was into, writing. I was at poetry. I mean, there was just so many things that I loved. So to know now that seeing all of those pieces of my life kind of coming together in the way that they have, and that I am teaching, I may not be a traditional teacher in a classroom, but I
Right.
do teach. I am acting and have an opportunity with SAG and AFTRA and AEA, and then all of that came to fruition in a way. Then the fact that I'm not in the army, but did fitness and boot camp classes, and so because that was really the only reason why I went to the army, was because I just like the idea of physical fitness and kind of doing that
Okay, because
level
I
of
was going to say, I
exercise.
was going to put a pin right there. I was going to say the army. Where
Yeah.
did that desire come from?
Yes, exactly. So that was more, it wasn't really like the fight, but I love guns. Like I don't have a problem with guns either. So that was part of like shooting. And so, having that aspect as well. So I think in all of that, that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of where some of those things come in. So while little Kimberly, did I think my life was going to take the trajectory that it has, and living in different places and kind of
Mm-hmm.
the collage of my life, the way it came together. But if I sat back and reflected on it, yeah, I'm actually doing a lot of the things that I thought that I was going to do, but just in a different way. Like the mix is different, if that makes
Wow.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
Hmm.
So, um, fresh out of college, what steps did you take first? Like, were you into fitness first? Did you start writing first? What did you do first?
None of the above. All right. So I went to UNC Chapel Hill thinking that I was going to become this world famous journalist. At the time, Barbara Walters, in a sense, was kind of like, that's what I want to do. I want to ask these probing questions and I want to be the next Barbara Walters. And I went to UNC thinking that journalism was it. And I ended up taking my first communication performance class. And I fell in love with acting. I was like, no, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad gave me some really sound advice. And he said, and well, excuse me, let me say that. I went into acting, and then I also still had that desire to teach, but I didn't know if I didn't want to major in education. It just didn't, I didn't enjoy that. So of course at that time, and it's still a program today, Teach for America, if you remember that. Did you remember ever hearing about Teach for America? Basically,
No.
Teach for America is a program where they take bright college students who majored in anything. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to be an education person. And if you're selected, then you teach 2 years in the inner city. So like in New
Okay.
York or in Houston or wherever, and you're giving 2 years of your life, and they bring in, they kind of train you like boot camp, summer type thing, intensive. And then you go out and you teach for 2 years. So I didn't know if I wanted to do that. So I actually got an internship in New York City with Teach for America my junior year in college. That helped me realize that's not really what I want to do.
That wasn't it.
That wasn't it. It wasn't what I mean. I had a good time. It was an enjoyable internship, but I was like, I really don't think this is what I want to do full time. So my dad said, Kim, why don't you, I want you to be a smart artist. I don't want you to just go out and try to become this actress. I want you to either go and get your master's or work for a business for about 2 years and learn some business skills, and then go off and do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of what I did. So I actually worked for Ernst & Young, LLC, very corporate, and was a consultant for 2 years.
Okay.
And 2.5 years. And I was, nothing against Ernst & Young by any stretch of imagination. It wasn't me. I was able to do it, and I did a great job, and, was promoted and all of that. But I soon came to realize like I needed to get into something else.
Understood. So I want to shift a little bit. At what point in your journey did you get into fitness and then fine tune it to the point where you have with health? Because you do not only fitness, but you do a lot with nutrition and internal health. So how did that journey shape up for you?
Okay. Well, in college, I took my first hip hop dance class, like hip hop aerobics class, and was like hooked, right? So I was like, oh, this is the best, right? And it was before Zumba, before all the stuff that's out right now. But somebody at UNC taught this type of class, and I was like, this is not exercise. This is just fun.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got married really early out of college, I got married at 23.
Okay.
So my husband's 4 years older than I am. And so we got married pretty quickly and moved to Seattle, Washington, right? I mean, like literally before we got married, we didn't live together because my daddy wasn't having that, but we did move out there, bought a house, and then I moved back home and stayed there until we got married. And in that moment, I went to a gym and there was no hip hop dance classes. I was like, wait, I mean, there were in Seattle, probably. We didn't live like in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, I guess it's not there. So I'm going to need to bring it. Right. So I got certified as a fitness instructor, and I started teaching hip hop dance classes in Seattle. And it was just kind of like, then I moved from Seattle to Phoenix in about 1.5 years. And I started really teaching. That's where fitness for me blew up, because I remember I told you I only worked for Ernst & Young for 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when I left, I was like, I got to make some money. Like, I had saved and I had made a lot of, but I still needed a career. Like I needed something to do. And I taught 15, 20 classes a week. I was teaching everything from hip hop to weightlifting to cycling to step and I just immersed myself in, those are my, early 20s, 25, 24, 20, like that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Moved to Minnesota, same type of thing. It was more fitness. And in Minnesota, it was acting. So that was number 2 behind New York. So like my life started kind of like fitness was always there, because as an actor, you have to keep in shape. At least the kind of acting I was doing and being on
Mm-hmm.
stage. And I just felt like it was an easy hand in hand. Like, why not get paid to work out? That was always my thing. Like, if I'm going to work out, I might as well get somebody to pay me for it. So
absolutely.
I can go. And then when you're not gigging, what you're not gigging,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, it gives you kind of a little bit of a steady paycheck coming in, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for that, it was for me, that was what I wanted to do. And
Okay.
so and so you asked how it morphed into nutrition was an illness that I had. I ended up getting something called C. difficile from an antibiotic I took for what they thought was a sinus infection. Now, if you want the whole story on that, it's in my book. But what they thought was a sinus infection, I took this antibiotic, and then my good and bad bacteria in my digestive system was wiped out, and what repopulated was bad bacteria. And it was an almost 10-year process of learning how to reconstruct my digestive system so that I wasn't sick. I didn't have acne. I wasn't tired all the time. I didn't have, digestive issues like IBS and worse. And I didn't want to take medication. Like, I didn't want to live on medication for the rest of my life. So that became out of necessity to learn about nutrition to turn that around. And so as I started turning it around, I realized how much I loved helping people understand how to eat, and especially people in the brown and Black communities, because we don't always have the same access to information. And health coaching isn't cheap. I tell people, like, it's not, and so if certain doctors and they're not covered by insurance companies, right? So so you don't get the access to those nuances and that information. And so I wanted to bring those health and wellness practices to our people in that way. So,
Okay.
to everyone, definitely wellness things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense, because oftentimes, if it's not readily accessible to us, we don't tend to go find it on our own. So your learning process to renew your health back to what it needed to be, was it all just learning on your own? Did you go take some classes? Did you have a mentor in this area, or was it just, I need to be well, so let me dive in and find everything I need on my own?
Well, no, there was never on my own. First and foremost, it was directing my prayers to God to say, I need you to direct my path, because I asked doctors questions. And at that time, we're talking 2007, the world of paleo, keto, gluten-free, all the options that are it wasn't there. And so when I called the doctor and was like, well, what do I need to do? I'm not feeling better. They were like, well, you need to, add some probiotics to your diet. And I was like, okay, they were like some yogurt. I said, are you talking about like yogurt? This is how ignorant I was like, are you talking about Yoplait? Like what? Like, maybe more like Stonyfield Farms, some acidophilus. I was like, acid what? Like, I didn't think, I knew nothing. You know what I mean? I knew nothing. And so I just started at that point, like, Father, you're going to have to direct my path. And in that, he brought people into my life. He brought articles into my life that I needed, information, seminars. And then when I started grasping some things and getting the information and realizing, and like I said, I had a mentor, Dr. Gibson, out of Atlanta, who really opened my eyes to some major points and things that I needed. And then after that happened, I really wanted to go back to school. So I decided to go back to school for nutrition, and I've studied through IIN, and got my certification through them, and then went and did a deeper certification through them with gut health and microbiome reconstruction.
Okay. Yeah. So with you being in the industry as long as you have, as knowing as much as you know, and now you coach and offer these nutrition sessions worldwide to individuals, what have you found is the biggest challenge with getting people to turn the page to change?
It's getting out of their own way, in the sense of, we have conditioned ourselves to sometimes be comfortable where we are, or we get to I always tell people, they get to a certain point, but they never progress past that point, because what happens is sometimes we don't feel like either we're worthy to get to the body or the health that we want to get to. We're stuck in some self-sabotage. I call it upper limiting mentality and so you get to a certain point, and then you do something to bring yourself back down. You get to a point and you bring yourself back down. And so health and wellness is one of those things where we get on this track, and then something comes in. And what I call it is usually something outside of our primary food, and primary food being your career, your spirituality, your physical activity, or your relationships. And something is not in sync in one of those four areas. And so you have a death in the family, or you have someone get sick, or your job changes, or COVID, or everything happens at one time and the whole world shuts down, right? And then you're like, that's why people were like, why did I gain the COVID-19? Because every piece of your primary food left the table. It was no longer satisfying. And so you use secondary food, which is the food we put in our mouth. So getting out of our own way and allowing ourselves to feast on life and what we're supposed to do is what usually makes someone change. But if they don't feel that they're worthy of the things that they want to go for in those primary food areas, they constantly kick themselves back. So I focus a lot more on what you're doing as opposed to what you're putting in your mouth, because that will shift when you like what you're doing.
Name those four primary foods again. I don't think I've ever heard it framed that way. So what do you consider the four primary foods again?
Physical activity. And that doesn't necessarily have to be like running. That can be gardening. That can be a hobby. That can be, but it's like some sort of thing that you put yourself into. Like my husband loves motorcycles, right? It's not necessarily a physical activity, but it's a physical thing there. Relationships, your career, and your spirituality. So those four areas of your life, I always ask someone when they're saying that I'm eating all the time, or they say, a lot of times we phrase it as emotional eating. It's not really emotional. There's something that has happened in your primary food that has created, discord, and you're not in a place of harmony. And so that food is out of balance. And until you bring that back into, and I hate using the word balance, because those four areas are never going to be equal. But that harmony, when that harmony isn't there, then you're going to fall into that trap of, it happens to me. I'm a coach, but anytime I'm doing that, I'm always like, I can snap out of it a little faster, because I'm like, I know what area, where is there something that's out of sync.
Wow. Okay. That's good. I like that. So to shift again, you mentioned that you married young. So how many years have you been married?
21.
20. Congratulations.
Thank you.
In those 21 years, how many times have you guys moved?
I always have to count it up. I know it sounds crazy. All right. Seattle, Phoenix, Minneapolis, South Carolina, Philly, South Carolina, and here. 7th. This is my 7th move.
So being married young, and then at some point children come into the equation, how are you managing Kimberly, managing being a wife, managing being a mother, and your husband comes on and says, I got a new assignment? What I want from the first, let's say 2 to 3 moves to maybe the latter half moves, because I'm assuming somewhere within these 7 moves, you probably mastered it. Like you could probably move your house now in your sleep.
Yeah.
But how was it your first couple of moves with you being new wife, new mom? How did you manage that transition?
Well, my first 3 moves were without kids. So it was an adventure for us, right? I mean, like you're young, you're 23. My husband, like I said, is 4 years older than I am. So we're in that age of, having a good time. They brought us to cities that were cool cities. I mean, like I would have never in my life said, I'm going to move to Seattle. But going to Seattle was amazing. My parents, were far away. So it allowed us, or both of our parents were very far away, allowed us to kind of come together. So those 3 moves, while it was difficult in the sense, the first one wasn't so hard because I still was working for Ernst & Young. So it was like I had a job, they had an office where I was going. It was just a different location and learning new things. I've always looked at it as an adventure and fun, like meeting new people, learning a new area, that kind of thing. So then moving to Minnesota was awesome because I was ready to act at that point in time. I was like, finally, like, all right, I'm going to go. I'm not like, it's not just about health and wellness and these exercise classes, I'm really ready to go in. And Minneapolis is number 2 behind New York for theater. So it was the best city that I could have gone to. And we were there for almost 4 years. So it was a nice stint of time to be there, and loved Minneapolis, just hated the cold. So when it came to having kids, well, we had our first son in Minnesota, and we were ready to move south because having a kid changes things. We now wanted to be close to our family, right? You know what I mean? Like, you want to be close to them. And so for that was my, like, okay, I'm happy about getting down south and getting into warmer weather. And so it wasn't that difficult. Then we had number 2 in South Carolina, and then it was, now we're moving back north again, right? Like, and there were other lifestyle things that were happening in the moment there as well, some things that were family-wise moving away. So it became more complicated with kids, because now I'm thinking about, what's the school district? Is it a good, like, buying a house is no longer just, buying a house. It has to do with, what's the resale value? Because now we know we're moving often. So we want to make sure good schools, good house. How do we do that? So it started to become that type of conversation. This final move, and I say it's the final move in the sense that it's the final move until definitely my kids get through high school, because I don't want them to have to make any more transitions. They've already had enough, in the sense that my oldest has moved. What is that? This is his 4th house.
Wow.
So wait, one, 2, 5th house. You see what I'm saying? I lose track. I mean, where was he? Where were we? What is that? And I think about the geography of going up and down. That's the thing. So I don't want him to have that. When he moves again, it's going to be what school he wants to go to and where he wants to go to. So it can be, I enjoy the challenge of learning a new location. I like meeting new people. I enjoy, setting up a home in a way that, like, what I always learn, like, I don't like that in that house. I thought I was going to like that. Every house has shown me what I like and what I don't like, right? What I want and what I don't want. And so it's been nice coming to this house in having had a chance to really weed out what I want and what I don't want. So I really love our house, because it pretty much has, minus a couple of things, it has everything that I would want in a house.
Okay. So we do have one question before I move to my next question. Do you talk about the primary foods in your book?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. So we're actually gonna talk about her book a little bit later. So yes, that information is in her book. So was there ever a time in your journey, be it in your career, with your health challenges, or, with the transitions of moving, that you were like, okay, God, how much more? How much longer? What was that point, and what was the trigger?
I wouldn't say that the moves or anything like that. I think for me, the biggest thing, I had lots of miscarriages. I think that for me was my space as a woman that was the hardest to walk through in faith. Because we didn't have any issue getting pregnant. So, like, a lot of women, discuss where they just can't get pregnant. And it's, month after month, there's no, but I would get pregnant and then lose the baby. So for me, it was always like, I felt like it was my fault. Like, why can't my baby, why can't my body hold on to this baby? Like, what's wrong with me? That kind of space. So thinking like that was my hardest time. And in that time frame, I was in Phoenix when it first happened. And then that journey of Minnesota really was that time frame when it was miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And and so I can remember distinctly getting pregnant. This time, this was the one that was successful, but I remember sitting on the porch in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, and just not knowing, like, feeling like I was frozen. Like, I was, of course, an actor, right? So I had shows coming up. I had people telling me I just needed to sit down and not do anything, but then I was like, okay, well, if I give up all of the shows, and I have another miscarriage, well, then I've like, what's, like now I'm depressed and I'm sitting there and I'm not doing anything. And I just remember the Holy Spirit just speaking to me and saying, just live, right? Because it was like, just, and it was, and then it was the flash of your grandmothers, your your ancestors, people were slaves. They had babies in fields. Like you can't sit on a bubble. And then the other part that he said, there are women that have babies that are addicted to crack. And so you eating this, not eating this, doing that, if this baby is viable and is healthy, it's gonna be here. And his name is Jai, which means victorious, and he's here. But that was, I think, my hardest journey to walk through, was that space of, God, what's wrong with me? Like what, I eat what I think I eat well, I exercise, I, pray, I tithe, all of the things that you think that you are doing to say, I'm a vessel for you. But when he was just like, just live. Just live and stop letting people. And so it was because my church community knew about all the miscarriages. They were like, because I was doing a Christmas show for them where I was dancing and doing choreography, and they were like, oh, you need to sit down. And I was like, no, I got the word that I'm supposed to just live. And so I danced through that. I did my one-woman show for Pillsbury House Theater called Hot Comb Branding, One Mark of Oppression. And they had it for an open run because it had sold out that summer before. And they wanted to, extend it as long as I could. And I did the show as long as I could because it was an hour and a half. And I did it until I couldn't do it anymore because I had to use the restroom. Like I couldn't get off the stage to go to the bathroom. So it's like, Jai grew up, or not grew up, but developed in my womb with me dancing and acting and performing all through that.
Wow.
So, I taught aerobics. I remember teaching aerobics a week before 2 weeks, before he was due. And my manager was just like, I can't let you teach anymore because I think you're going to have the baby on the floor. So I did just live, you know what I mean?
Wow,
I was like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I did not know that part of your testimony. Were all of your miscarriages before your first child, or were there more between your first and second child?
I had my first and second. I thought my second was actually not going to be here because I started to bleed with him. And I remember coming home and telling Marcus, and he said, we're going to stand on it. And he's here. So he's Israel, and he's a handful of joy and crazy good energy in this house. Marcus, Jai, our oldest, is like a carbon copy of my husband, and then Israel is probably my carbon copy. So
okay. Okay.
But I had a miscarriage after him.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay.
So that's something a lot of women, I know, I've had friends very close to me deal with that. How many miscarriages did you have, and how, by the time that you got to your first child, how did that test your faith?
Well, it was 5 before the first, and then 6 the last.
Gotcha.
The testing my faith, I never, at this point in my life, I have not had my faith in God tested to the place of being where I ever feel like I don't believe, or that there's, in that space. It was more, God, what do I need to learn? What do I need to do? How do I need to approach this? Kind of coming, like the feeling of truly having to let go. Like you said, just live. Like there's nothing that I can do. It's finally relinquishing all control and saying, I got to give it to you because I have no more. I can't fix this. I can't make this work properly.
Right.
And so I have not, thankfully, had anything that because my framing is that the Most High Heavenly One is sovereign. And just because I don't understand or can conceptualize why something is happening does not mean that it's off, or his timing is off, or the situation is off, because I don't understand how he unfolds everything and why something is going to, why am I meeting this person? Why did I have to move? Why? So in that sovereignty, or that place that I exist, like there's never a question of my faith in him. It's more, am I willing to say it's yours?
Mm, yeah, that's such a beautiful perspective. And you know, that's a place that a lot of us have to mature to realize, that God's will, whether we like it or not, really is perfect and really is working for our good.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something that was instilled in you by your parents? Was that your faith growth over time? Where did you get that level of maturity to say, thy will be done, God?
I know that the foundation is definitely from my parents and from growing up. I mean, I grew up in a house that, you know, I grew up with my mother every day speaking scripture over our lives and praying and seeing her pray, and my dad as well, you know, reading the Bible. And so there was always, and we were always, you know, going to church in that regard. So the foundation was that I didn't always live the way I was taught to live. And my testimony is very real with that, in the sense that, you know, you get those years from 16 to 21 that I decided to try it my way.
Yes.
That didn't work. So, you know, I look at those things with that over time, and really developing my own. I think that's a big thing. It's developing my own relation, not my mom's relationship, because it's very different. My relationship with God is very, very different than my mother and father's relationship. It's very different than my sister or my brothers. We all have our separate walk, and how, you know, he's come to show us who he is and to reveal himself to us. And that's what you have to, you know, to strive for, is that relationship with him in a way that is real to you. Because I think a lot of times we will mimic what we see, but are we really coming to ask the questions that bring a level of weight to our lives that truly ground us? And so that for me has been developing my own relationship, and going through life, and really saying, like, I do search for, even in the things that come out that I think are like, man, why didn't I get that? Or, you know, something happens and I'm like, oh, like, especially in the acting world, you won't get an audition, or you won't get a job that you thought you were going to get, or you did. And all of a sudden you're like, man, I wish I had gotten that. And I'm like, all right, it's yours, Lord, whatever. And then you'll see, because we have something where you can't, conflict of interest. Like if you work for one bank, you can't do another. And sometimes I'll see the reason why, and sometimes I won't. But there's so many things that in my life have lined up where I'm like, that's why I didn't get that, or that's
Absolutely.
why. And so as you start
Absolutely.
to recognize those things in your life, you realize you're like, it's easy for your faith, for me to say, you know, all things are working together for the good of those who love the Lord and call them.
Yes.
Like, I'm like, so I just have to kind of put my hands up and say, okay, I may not understand it, but you're working all this out. So I think that it's part life experience, but my parents definitely gave me a great foundation.
Got it. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about some of your products. So I'm going to bring up some of your graphics, and you can tell us what this is about and how we can.
Sure. Okay. So the first thing I see right here is Gut Check 21. And this is my signature health coaching program. It is kind of the way in which I feel like health coaching can come to everyone. So people always say to me, you know, like I told you in the beginning how I want health coaching to be accessible to everyone, no matter what the cost, right? So this program, while it may seem like it's expensive, it's health coaching for life. I've been doing this program since 2015. And once you buy the program, you're always in the program. I do it 3 times live every year. And it is videos, recipes, information, and live calls twice a week. So let's say you go to the doctor, they say you have high blood pressure. You're like, I have Kimberly as a health coach. You can send me an email, even if it's not during the live session, and say, this is what happened. What are some of the things that you think that, I should do to help myself in this situation. So of course I'm going to give you some things to think, and I'm going to say, and join me for gut check in October, or join me for gut check in April, or gut check in January, when I have them, those 3 times a year. And that way we can really work through some of those things as well. So this is my way of bringing health coaching to everyone for life in a way that is accessible and affordable, because it's a fraction of what one-on-one coaching would be. So that's what that check 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then Share the Joy, 52 Weeks to Abundant Health is the next, and I would always say to people, the next tier, where I tried to pour out 52 lessons and as to what to do to change your health in a year. And it's basically written for every week. You have a different lesson. It's meant to be journaled inside of how do you feel about this practice, really working that practice throughout the entire year, the entire week, and adding on a new practice, while keeping the old ones. And some of them are meant to kind of phase in and out, but for the majority, it's trying to help you step into a healthier lifestyle and introduce some of the things that, people don't know about, tongue scraping or oil pulling or EMFs. They're like, well, what is all of that? These are things that people in other communities sometimes know about, but we don't always have the information. So I wanted to write a book for everyone.
Okay.
Eating by God's Design. This is a free 4-week video series that I do with question and answers. I do it usually twice a year. I like people to know about it because we step through the Bible verse by verse, and when it talks about eating and what God wants for you and how to feed your temple, and the evolution throughout the Bible on food and what it really means. And I step on a few toes on this one because sometimes we're reading things that's not what it's kind of like we don't realize that we've been taught something that may or may not be correct. So it's a great series that I do.
Gotcha. And last but not least,
I have a cookbook coming out in the fall of 2021. I'm very excited about it. And so it's called Joyful Nourishment, and I cannot wait to release it. It will be a digital cookbook. So I know most people these days don't crack open cookbooks on, the table. They're using Pinterest and all kinds of stuff. So I decided to make it a digital cookbook. So this is the part on here where it says summer salad. It was a free recipe from the cookbook that was there. So that's what this is.
Okay. Thank you. So last question before I bring up your contact information and get you to share your last bit of inspiration or encouraging words with us. What does Kimberly, being a wife and a mom of 2 sons, what do you do for self-care or quiet time?
My favorite self-care quiet time is I live in South Florida, which I never realized that I was a South Florida girl until I moved to South Florida, but I don't ever in life want to go anywhere else. I get on my paddleboard, and yes, Black women paddleboard.
Wow.
And so it's meditation. Like it's so relaxing to me to be on the water and standing up on a paddleboard and engaging. You engage your whole body because you've got to stay balanced on the water on this board. And I just love it because I can see the fish swimming and sea turtles and manatee, and you're there with them, but you're not necessarily in the water, and it's for me moving meditation. And so that's how I completely unwind. I don't like going really with anyone. I just enjoy going by myself and just spending an hour or two on the water paddleboarding, South Florida.
So you like a lot of adventure, it sounds like.
I do. I like to zip line. I like to do all kinds of stuff like that. So but my relaxation side of things, that would be it. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know that I would consider paddleboarding relaxation, but I'll take it from you.
I mean, I enjoy sitting on the beach and meditating as well. But if you have to try it before you you got to try it, and you're like, oh, I see where it's quiet. It's really peaceful.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll take your word for it. I'm not going to say I'll never try it, but for now, I'm just going to take your word for it.
I gotcha.
Okay. So we can connect and follow you on Facebook and IG at Do All Things with Joy.
Yeah.
And then that is also your website. So is that where we would be able to get all of those products that you listed? Would
Yes.
they be on your website? Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think Stephanie has also dropped the link in the comments to one of your books. So for those that are watching, in the comments, you'll find the link to Amazon to get, I believe, is the Share the Joy book that she's put the link in. So thank you for doing that, Stephanie.
Thank you.
So as always, so very glad that you said yes. And I know that like all of my guests, you have something more to sprinkle on all of the goodness that you've already shared with us. So if you had any words of inspiration, motivation, encouragement to share with the individuals that are watching or those that will watch in the replay, what is it that you would want to leave with us tonight?
I want you to know that God has put a purpose and a plan in your life, that there's something that you're supposed to do. And a lot of times we allow fear or, oh, too much time has gone by. I don't have enough time for this. We don't do it. And one of the things that I would say to do is to really, really, really be sure that you go after that dream. Don't allow time to slip by and say, oh, I can't get it done because of time. This is you, and there are so many people that don't have your gift. And even if you feel like it's been done before, because if McDonald's were to say to Burger King, you've done the hamburger, I'm not doing it. So that's why I think for most people, I want you to know that you have the gift and that you need to do what has been placed inside of your heart, and to never, even if you take a break like I did for 15 years and now I'm back at acting, I know that that was something I was supposed to do. So don't ever give up on what God has placed in your heart to do, because you have a purpose here.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was good. That was good. So, you guys, please make sure you connect with Kimberly on all of her social media platforms. Go visit her website, grab her products, join Gut Check 21.
Love to have you.
Do all the things, because I can attest to the older we get, these bodies will start telling on us when we are not taking care of them properly. So do all that you can to take care. So Kimberly, thank you for being such a special gift in that area, and bringing information to us that we either haven't sought out on our own or just haven't taken time, for just being a wealth of information in that area, and all that you have brought and continue to bring to the lives of those that you touch. So thank you so much for saying yes. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. I'm so glad that after the break, you guys jumped right back in, and said, hey, Women Who Win's happening tonight, so we're going to support. I will be back tomorrow night with another guest. You've probably seen the flyer out. My sister Glenda Williams will be joining me tomorrow night. So same time, 8:30 p.m. So if you guys would just have some announcement coming up with with closing out. Again, Kimberly, thank you if you'd hang out with me for a moment in the studio. Again, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you back tomorrow night. Would you like to join us behind the scenes of Women Who Win? We're building a team of amazing thought leaders to grow with us. Please send an inquiry email to info@simplytammy.com for more information. If you enjoy the conversations on Women Who Win, let's connect beyond this space. Join us in the Our Common Thread community, where we are celebrating our stories and having deeper conversations. Visit simplytammy.com/connect to subscribe to the community.